Imagine a group that promises love, freedom, and the creation of a new spiritual family. Now imagine that behind these words lie abuse, manipulation, and dark practices. This is the story of the sect known as the Children of God, a cult that has deceived thousands of people around the world. The sect emerged in the late 1960s amid a climate of counterculture and spiritual revolution. Young people were searching for meaning in life, and into this fertile ground emerged David Berg, the movement's founder. He presented himself as a modern-day prophet, capable of revealing hidden secrets of the Bible. At first, the message seemed innocent: peace, love, and building a community based on unity. But behind the spiritual discourse lay a calculated strategy to attract, trap, and manipulate vulnerable minds. Berg called himself Moses David and soon began to impose his distorted vision of faith. The Children of God expanded rapidly, traveling to various countries and attracting followers with the promise of a life free from society's rules. Many young people abandoned their families, their studies, and their careers to follow the prophet. What they didn't know was that they were entering a system of psychological domination. Within the sect, love was central to everything, but not in the pure or spiritual sense. Berg distorted the idea of love to justify behaviors that would be unacceptable outside the sect. He argued that sexuality should be used as a tool for evangelization. This is how the practice known as flirty fishing emerged. Women in the sect were encouraged to seduce men from outside, including influential foreigners, to attract new members and resources to the group. The female body became a bargaining chip in the name of religion. These practices shocked the world when they came to light years later, but within the sect, they were presented as acts of divine love. To question them meant going against the word of Berg, who positioned himself as the voice of God on earth. The psychological manipulation was intense. Isolation of members was strategic, cutting ties with family, avoiding contact with the outside world, and living in closed communities. This isolation made each individual dependent on the group for survival. Furthermore, the Children of God used constant indoctrination. Songs, readings, testimonies, and daily meetings reinforced the sect's ideas, weakening any critical thinking. It was like living in a bubble where only Berg's voice made sense. Over time, the abuse became even more severe. Accounts from former members describe sexual exploitation practices involving not only adults, but also children. The sect maintained that sexual innocence was part of divine purity, a monstrous narrative used to cover up crimes. Many grew up within the sect without ever knowing any other reality. Children of members were indoctrinated from an early age, taught to blindly obey and accept abuse as demonstrations of spiritual love. David Berg justified everything with distorted interpretations of the Bible. He claimed to receive direct revelations from God, and any disagreement was treated as rebellion against the divine. This religious manipulation made escape nearly impossible. The cult also exploited fear. There was constant preaching that the world was about to end and only God's children would be saved. This created a cycle of dependence. Leaving the group meant, for many, abandoning their own salvation. At the same time, there was a positive facade. Members distributed pamphlets, songs, and messages of hope, masking the horrors happening behind the scenes. To the outside world, it was a young and cheerful movement full of idealism. However, allegations began to surface. Former members who managed to escape began reporting abuse, sexual exploitation, and coercive practices. The shock was enormous, but many were afraid to speak out because of threats from the sect. In the 1980s and 1990s, international investigations revealed the group's true face. Several countries began banning the activities of the Children of God, and several communities were dismantled. Still, the sect managed to survive. After Berg's death in 1994, his wife Karen Zerby took over leadership. Under the pseudonym Maria, she kept the sect active, now under the name the Family International. Despite the image changes, the marks of the past have never been erased. Today, the group claims to have abandoned its most extreme practices and presents itself as a modern religious community. But for survivors, the scars remain. Many report deep trauma, difficulty trusting others, and painful memories that still haunt them. The story of the children of God is a frightening example of how religion can be used as a mask for manipulation and abuse. When faith is distorted, it becomes a tool of control. This case also shows how charismatic leaders can exploit human frailties. Young people searching for meaning in moments of personal or social crisis become easy prey to speeches of salvation and unconditional love. And that's where dark psychology comes into play. Techniques of mental manipulation, social isolation, and emotional abuse are powerful mechanisms used by cults like this. Once inside, escape becomes a nearly impossible battle. Many former members report that even after leaving, it took them years to rebuild their identity. The brainwashing was so profound that some still felt guilty about leaving the group. The Children of God case is also a warning. It shows how seemingly harmless communities can hide complex abusive systems. The facade of love and unity concealed a psychological and physical nightmare. Even today, smaller groups exist that have spun off from the original sect. This means that despite the revelations, Berg's legacy has not completely disappeared. The media continues to explore the case, whether in documentaries, books, or interviews. Each new revelation brings to light the suffering of people who lived years trapped in a system of terror, disguised as spirituality. And when we think about this, the question arises, how did something so extreme manage to last so long without being exposed? The answer lies in its ability to manipulate human minds, exploiting our weaknesses and deepest desires. The Children of God are not just the story of an isolated cult. They are a frightening reflection of what happens when charismatic leaders abuse faith, transforming hope into an instrument of oppression. The case also forces us to reflect on the limits of obedience and belief. To what extent can a person be led to accept the unacceptable when they believe they are fulfilling a greater purpose? Stories like this remind us that the human mind is capable of withstanding terrifying realities, but also of recovering. Many survivors today strive to transform their pain into awareness, alerting new generations to the dangers of cults. In analyzing the case of the Children of God, we are not just looking at the past. We are looking at mechanisms that still exist, ready to manifest in new forms. That's why we need to remain vigilant, questioning speeches that promise easy salvation, leaders who demand absolute devotion, and groups that isolate people from the outside world. The Children of God sect shows us how religion, manipulation, and power can merge into something monstrous, and how, behind smiles and songs, an invisible prison can hide. Did you enjoy the content? Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more mind-boggling insights where we reveal what many prefer to ignore.